Okay, we will be calling the Capital Improvement, Capital Investment Committee meeting for March 14th to order. The first item on the agenda is the approval of the February 7th minutes. How do I?
Motion to approve.
Second.
Second, okay. We have a motion and a second. How do we vote?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, all in favor? Good. The ayes have it. The second item on the agenda is consideration of sanitary sewer availability for 395 Franklin Road, map 053, parcel 04500. Mr. Parker?
This is the Meadows property, or portion of the Big Meadows Farm property right across from the golf course. The nearest sewer is 1,600 feet or so away. They're on septic right now, and my understanding they're just wanting to increase the building, et cetera.
Is this a denial?
Yes.
Okay.
And before they can do any building permit to increase their residential structure and add to the septic, what's going to the septic tank, we have to deny it before the county will give them approval to do the other. So that's what this is in for, and they're asking for a denial.
Motion to deny sewer availability for 395 Franklin Road.
Second.
So we have been asked to deny.
Right.
All righty then.
All right, we have a proper motion and a second.
Perfect sense.
All in favor of
Aye.
the denial?
Deny.
I have a question on this. This is for just one single family?
Yes.
It's not going to be multiple.
There's an existing.
Well, it's a motion to deny.
So,
I know, but there was,
in-
And it's 1,600 feet away. It's a good distance. It's
Very far away.
all right, item number 3, the consideration of final change order for Gardney construction for the West Main Water and Sewer Rehabilitation Project, City of Franklin contract number 2012-0080.
Make this real quick. It's a recommendation for deduction in the final contract of $87,134.90.
Motion to approve.
Second.
We have a proper motion and a second. All in favor of the motion?
Aye.
Aye.
When will they do the payment?
That'll happen this spring. Actually, our street department will manage that through their annual contract.
Okay.
Okay, the motion passed. Agenda number 4, item number 4, consideration of the construction contract award for the Vikings Product, Inc. for the Maplewood Green Branch Stream Restoration Project. It's the City of Franklin contract number 2012-0081 in the amount of $103,605. This will come out of the stormwater capital budget.
This is, excuse me, this is the, basically the same project that we had bid before. It was like $200 and something thousand. It was way over budget. We went back and did some alterations on it and rebid it, and this is what the bid has come in at, and we recommend approval.
Any discussion?
Motion to approve.
Second.
We have a proper motion and a second. All in favor of the motion?
Aye.
Ayes have it. Item number 5, consideration of construction contract award to SNR Excavation in the amount of $409,045.75 for the West Main Street Water and Sanitary Sewer Replacement Phase 2 project. City of Franklin contract number 2012-0193. This also is a budget in the Water and Sewer Fund.
This is basically extension or fill-in from the project that we just did the final change order on. This picks up at 96 West and mainly replaces the sewer line from there over to Hillsborough Road, 5th Avenue. It's the line that we've had lots of trouble with. We need to increase size to handle what we just did also, but this is a line that right now goes under McDonald's, and this will replace that to where it no longer goes under McDonald's also, so we recommend approval.
So we don't have to dig up McDonald's.
No, sir.
So where would the digging take place, along 96 or,
It's between McDonald's and the bank,
oh,
right?
the bank?
Yeah,
Okay.
bank all the way over to Hillsborough Road.
All the way over to Hillsborough Road.
Stuff under 96 will be
Yeah, let's get some more
treacherous
stuff going over
technology.
there.
I know, that's
While we're at it,
what else?
All I can tell you is I am so glad I don't have to go to Jim Warren Park every day anymore.
Motion to approve.
We have a motion, is there a second?
Second.
Proper motion, second, all in favor of the motion?
Aye.
Aye. Okay. Item number 6, consideration of change order number 2 with Modern Day Reckon in the amount of $6,940 for the City of Franklin Properties demolition and debris removal, contract number 2012-0088. This is part of the Hillsborough Road project funded as
That is
part of
correct. This is a contract that we have with this wrecking company that we used them for the houses we purchased for demolition from the flood and other projects we're wanting to add to it. This will be the building where the check cashing company was at, there at North
And the hair,
Margin.
the hair.
No, the hair salon building is going to stay. The contractor's using it as his construction office, so we'll be having to do that, and he has to tear it down, is that right?
Yes.
It's part of the contract, so it'll
But
stay.
that's coming down.
It is coming down, but this, we need to get this down because there's electrical equipment, et cetera, that goes on this site as we do the project.
So, in order for us to move forward.
Right.
Move for approval?
Second.
Have a motion and a second. All in favor of the motion?
Aye.
Aye.
Item number 7, consideration of the road impact fee offset agreement, contract number 2013-016 with Trillium Farms LP for the construction of a portion of the Carruthers Parkway South improvement. Mr. Parker.
This, excuse me, the developer for the Highlands at Ladd Park is going forward with the project. They're needing to go ahead and do a portion of the Carruthers Parkway South from Long Lane up to, this is just a portion of this description of Long Lane up to Truman Road. It's just a little ways where they can get some more sections approved for their development. And what is being proposed is generally, it follows our general standard way of doing road impact fee offset agreements, with the exception that we have actually negotiated with the developer the payment being 50% for this particular offset, which is $876,102. We've negotiated with them that instead of all the funds that we've already collected from road impact fees, we're going to pay on the front end as a reimbursement after the construction's complete and we accept it, only 50% of this total cost, which is, that'll be $438.51. We've collected to date, or as of March 8th, we've collected $464,238 in road impact fees from the Highlands at Ladd Park. So we'll still have some, and then we'll be collecting in the meantime also. And then the other half, or the other 50%, will be a direct credit, offset credit as buildings come in to pay their building permit, so they'll have a credit for paying the other half of what this offset is for. That's the main difference. I mean, of course, every offset agreement is tied to a specific development with those particulars that are required for that development, but that's the main difference in this from what we normally do. We usually just pay everything we've collected up to that point of when it's due, and then they get credit. So we've changed it just a little bit. And the contractors, I mean, the developer is in agreement with doing that.
Would you like a motion in discussion?
Yeah,
Motion to approve?
I will second that.
Second, oh, you want a second, all right.
We have a motion and second, all in favor?
No.
Oh,
Wait, we
discussion.
gotta
Discussion.
Okay,
discuss.
discussion, okay.
And I want to have something. Go ahead.
All right, okay.
No.
No, mine was really just a request. Is this a piece of the money that we voted on, or is this in addition to the amount of money?
What we're building, the South Carruthers, the Carruthers Parkway South that we're constructing goes from basically Falcon Creek down to Truman Road.
That's what I thought.
All right, the section that the developer is responsible for is from Truman Road to Long Lane. This is a section of that. It's only a portion of that. It's, I forgot the length. I was like, what is it, Paul?
About 1,000 feet.
About 1,000 feet from Long Lane north. So we still have a gap until he gets ready to build the rest of it. Also, he has to do a turn lane in Long Lane. So, but that's what this is. That's what this is. So it's not what we're contracting to do. No.
So in other words, it's an addition, so Long Lane will really cost this plus the,
This
Trust
connects
me.
you to Long Lane.
that's right.
This is the last piece.
The cost of, no, I'm sorry, not Long Lane.
Carruthers
The cost of
Parkway.
The cost of Carruthers really will be,
What we're doing,
What we talked
plus
about,
what
plus
what he
this.
has to do, which is this plus some more. So yes.
so really, this is more money, this is an addition to the cost that we voted on,
So when
Yes.
you look at the whole project.
This
it's
is outside of our project.
right?
Yes.
But,
This map that might help.
yeah, be good, thank you.
We're not gonna be losing any money here.
It's trimmed off, ma'am.
We're allocating an offset fees they would otherwise
Yeah.
pay.
Thank
This
you.
is based on the
Yeah.
cost to deliver the road, similar to costs we would pay if we would have to
It's,
build it.
it's the way the ordinance set up for offsets, yes.
Right, right. So I'm just saying that this is in addition to the amount of money that's been committed by the city, but it's still, it was still our money, yes, thank
I
you.
think I get what you're saying. It's still, it's our money. Just-
That's right, that's right.
Yes.
But we've always
I just-
described the Carruthers South project as to this permanent point. A lot of times people refer to Long Lane, but the plan had always been to connect to this piece, and the developer was doing that
We'll-
last component through their development to Long Lane.
Right, and we'll add that there's still got an expected $3.3+ million of impact fees from the Highlands at Ladd Park. That's on top of what we've already collected. So there are, they'll be paying,
There's more money
more
in the
monies.
pipeline.
But there's going to be more offset
That's
coming
right.
to you also, as they do the other section or the gap that we'll be seeing from this point. There is more offsets that they'll be coming to you from, which
David,
is, and it goes along with the way our ordinance is written.
How does the rest of it coordinate? Finishing that, closing that gap the rest of the way, completing the rest of the roadway, how does that sync up with our project?
That is really development determined as far as how his project develops forward and how he needs to have additional lots, et cetera, for his development to sell. So it's really going to depend on the economy and how quick he develops.
Would we ever go in and do it, not give him the road impact fee offsets?
You could do that, but what we've been negotiating up to this point is where we've always gone just down to Truman Road because we could get to Long Lane through the development, through Truman Road and Ladd Drive, I think it's
Yeah,
called.
I think it is.
But anyway,
That's what you showed me.
that's the reason we stopped at that point because of the ultimate cost, capital cost on the front end. It was, and
I'm not advocating that we do that.
Right.
Yeah.
you could always choose to do that if you so desire, but that is not something that is being recommended at this time.
So this is something we've done in the past, okay?
Yes.
Mr.
I
Skinner.
have a question. Can we clarify that? When the city finishes the 2 lanes of South Carruthers Parkway, we will have a continuous access to Long Lane through this Truman Road.
We will have access, yes.
Is there
Yes.
any chance that a section of this won't be done to make that connection?
Say
Of
again,
Truman Road?
say again what you said though about they
Truman
could
Road
get through by on Ladd.
No, we have an agreement
map.
with Ladd Park with Trillium right now to where we're committed to build Carruthers Parkway South to Truman Road, complete a section that's unbuilt of Truman Road over to where from South Carruthers, or Carruthers Parkway South, over to where Truman Road is completed, and then top Truman Road and Ladd Drive, I think, but it's Ladd anyway, it's what comes off along Ladd. Now, we just a month or so ago approved a modification or amendment to that agreement to allow the developer to do the work on Truman Road. and get that done, and also to do the topping where he can finish out some stuff if he gets in there before we do. But he is going to go and finish the Truman Road. So to answer, I'm explaining that where if you go down and look now, yes, there's a gap. But when we get Carruthers Parkway South that we're contracting to do, there will not be a gap. So we'll be able to go from 96 east all the way to Long Lane. It will not completely be South Carruthers or Carruthers Parkway South. You'll have to get on this other local collector type road, but you will have access, yes.
But there's no chance that that local collector won't be finished.
No,
No.
no.
We're actually gonna bid it as part of our project in case we do beat them and wanna change that agreement.
So,
So it'll get delivered one way or another.
It'll be
We
delivered.
expect it'll probably be delivered by the developer.
Correct.
Because to this point, they've been moving a little
right,
faster than we have because of their opportunities.
right.
But if it's not, we will have the option to build it
Yes,
and
we can
finish
build
it.
it. Mhm.
I just have a question that's really not on this, but now that you're talking about South Carruthers overall, what is the right-of-way there?
We're getting 130 feet.
Well, now, at some point very soon, I want us to talk about that, because now I'm learning a lot more about the 130 feet from Carruthers North, and I see why we have the wide median there, and, you know, because you may have to come in and put in some extra lanes. I would like for us to have a discussion about whether we want to do that on really a residential area, which we think we know what the build-out is going to be, because projects have already come in here, and the likelihood that it will be have a lot more intensity is a lot different from that northern part of it, which did not have projects proposed for it. I mean, we've even approved most of the projects all the way down this. And so as I say, I'd just like to have another discussion about, because I don't see
You think it's enough or not enough?
No, what I'm saying is, for the northern part, I see why we had the 130 feet. I'm not sure why we would want to do that
Residential.
for the southern part, which is residential. But the other thing is, we've already almost approved, or we have already looked at most of the projects up and down that road, I think. They're not built, you know, but we have approved a lot of them in the planning commission, and I don't see, unlike the northern part, where we're just learning about all the projects, I don't really see a lot of other projects coming here. So, but the other part of it is, it's the difference between a kind of a residential arterial and what I would call office, commercial, you know, industrial arterial. And so, we're not, and again, this is not on this,
Yeah.
but since we.
Well,
talked
let's just
about it,
make
I
sure that
just
they
wanna
know
ask
they can
that.
get that information to us
I
at some
think,
point.
I think
in
that's
time.
good, yeah. As I say, since we started talking about South Carruthers, that occurred to you.
Okay.
Something for us to think.
Well, you all so noted.
2
from
years
Sarah.
ago, we didn't expect to be widening.
2 years
Well,
ago.
we still need to talk
Yeah.
about some of that.
Yeah.
All right, then, we need to vote,
Yes.
correct? All right. All in favor of the motion?
Aye.
Aye. Okay. Motion passed. The item number 8, this is a presentation concerning options for the city to provide sanitary sewer system improvements in the west sanitary sewer drainage basin. Mr. Parker, you doing this
Which is the
presentation?
best
We don't
one,
have
but-
anything on that.
No, you
He's
do
doing a
not.
presentation.
Which is the best screen for y'all to look at? This
Well,
one?
probably this one,
Yeah,
back right
that
here,
one.
yeah. Ooh.
Good night. Are we supposed to
We
see
can't
that?
see the writing on it.
Now, you're dating yourself if you can't see that.
I can't. I can see it, but I can't read it.
Well, I'm just gonna read something for you, and you'll never know the difference in.
This is the west basin, it's generally, description of the boundaries. This is 96 right here, future McHatcher. This is West Haven, meeting of the waters, West Harpeth, Harpeth River. You got got Cotton Lane, Del Rio Pike. Del Rio Pike comes in here. I can't remember the name of that subdivision.
Whitehall.
Whitehall. This is the proposed Rogers development. I'm not sure the correct name, but anyway, that's the Rogers development. And this is the general area. We've got like 6 sub-basins in this area. We have West Haven Pump Station here with force main going over to the wastewater plant. This is the pump station out of Founder's Point. We had our consultant look at this, and as far as what we're seeing at this time, based on our planning documents, based on design criteria for sanitary sewer, et cetera, based on densities that are looked at as long-range plans and all. So we had them come in and do an update for this. If you'll scroll down, please. Our original basin stopped right here. This is the south basin. And as we were looking at what we have in our urban growth boundary, we have this southwest 1 drainage basin that's in our urban growth boundary that we were not looking at or having any discussions concerning how we were going to sewer this area when we first did this west basin. The consultant did what they were told to do on the west basin, but we're going back and adding this because the low point's right here at the West Harpeth. To bring a gravity sewer around the West Harpeth would mean that we'd be bringing a gravity sewer about 6 miles, following the West Harpeth River with a gravity sewer to serve just this area right here. So what we ask our consultant to do is look at what would happen if we put a pump station here when this happens. This is a long way out though, you understand it. And then we pump back over to go to what the system is we have in West Haven. So that's what our consultant was looking at. Go to,
What's that distance?
What is that?
What's that distance?
What was that
the
bottom
distance is
part?
something that we're not,
The top, yeah.
we're not really trying
There
to
you
look.
stop.
Right there's West Haven pump station.
I know that's what you're talking about, but scroll down just a little bit. The part down there below West Haven, what is that now?
What is
That is just it's in the county, it's not in our
Little
city
yellow
limits
pump
yet,
station.
but it is in our urban growth boundary. And as we're doing these basin studies,
It's right here on my screen. It's a domain.
we're looking at as far as how we're going to, in the future, we're looking to plan for serving what's in our urban growth boundaries. Again, this is not even annexed, it's outside the city. This is Carter's Creek Pike right here. This is where it splits.
So there's nothing really down there.
It's rural area right now. That is correct, but we have to look at
So
what we're
where's
going to have to do.
where's South Hall then?
South
It's
Hall
Carter's
is right
Creek
there.
Pike, right in, okay.
So that's the reason we've got this looking at right now is we've got to plan for it at some point. And if we're gonna start planning for this area, we need to look at it. It's gonna be a while before anything happens out there, we realize that, but we gotta plan for it. So, again, if you go to 0802.
Okay.
And what we did, again, is looking at all the potential development, potential densities, et cetera, acreages that are in this area. That is kind of hard to read.
You can't see it.
But the total acreage with both basins, that's the west basin and with the southwest 1 basin, is 5,871 acres. Oh, that's the west basin, then you add them together, it's 8,408 acres total. Existing residential units are like 2,005, number of existing residential, 2,533, that's approved, it's not necessarily built. Number of projected residential units is 13,000. Then we have commercial in the west basin of 686,000 square feet. And then population within Southwest 1 is, our population, and then for the West Basin is anticipated to be 27,798.
Where is that on the map? Where,
The southwest is the one I told you about that's in the county.
Okay, all right, okay.
In the UGB.
The west basin is what we're looking at. That's
That's the Rogers Farm?
Rogers Farm and all that. That's the big basin. Southwest basin, Southwest one basin is the one that's in the county. So total population we're looking at for both basins, once it's fully developed, is like 33,000 plus residents. We're looking at, with the west basin, that we would have a sewage flow of, or both basins, a sewage flow of approximately 5 million gallons per day, average daily flow. And then we have to peak that flow due to design criteria for meeting state requirements, et cetera, like that. And the peak flow that we have to look at using brings that sewage flow with both basins of 15.1 million gallons per day. That's what we have to be able to pump, not what we have to treat every day. We don't have to build a treatment plant to do that, but we have to pump that. So that's just the general numbers that we're looking at as far as coming up with what we're going to do as far as providing sanitary sewer in this area. Now, if you go to the next one, which is 0803, we've looked at 3 different options of how to provide sanitary sewer in this basin. This is option 1. And what we're looking at, again, this is the Rogers development. We're looking at a pump station that will serve the basin, the majority of the basin, not all of it, but well, it will ultimately serve all of it, but this will be the general location for a pump station that will pump back to our wastewater treatment plant. It's located in the middle of the Rogers property because if you go north of there, we have a real high bluff. It's a bluff area along the river, and if we tried to, you'll see what, just looking at a plan view, what it is, option 3 is we'd serve with a pump station down median waters. But this would be very hard to do. It would also take a lot of property out of development potential.
Option 1 does?
No, if we didn't do option 1, if we went on with our interceptor along the river down to the low point of the basin, it would. So we've looked at stepping back here with the pump station before we get to that high bluff. And we have met with the developer of Rogers property. They have looked at, and they say they can bring all their sewer back to this point. In fact, they're looking at bringing the sewer all the way back to the southern boundary, and they're asking us if we could possibly move this location down there. We're looking at that. We don't think that's a problem. It's still basically the same thing that what we're looking at here. So this is your line sizes that we're looking at to be able to sewer the basin, provided this is future build out, total build out of the basin. As we do this, we're looking at, as Dana and Clyde will definitely both remember, when we build a pump station, we try to take out a pump station. And what we're looking at is taking out West Haven Pump Station. So we would take out West Haven, gravity flow to wherever we build.
When you say the West Haven pump station, you mean the one over there on Charlotte?
Yes.
It's not at West Haven?
No,
No.
it's
North of
the
West
West
Haven.
Haven Pump Station.
It's
can
not
see-
in, on, or almost even near West
No,
Haven?
they
You
do.
can see West Haven.
Built by
from
them
that
to serve
side.
them.
That's called what it
It
is.
is the West Haven pump station only for convenient reference.
Right. But we're looking at, we take that out, and another reason we're looking at wanting to go on and do that is because when this pump station is initially built to serve this area, especially if we build it big enough to serve the basin, there's not enough flow from just this area to be able to pump. And if you'll recall, we actually had the dreaded pumping hall at West Haven for a little while because of that situation. So we're looking at going to take that pump station out, build the interceptor line up to the pump station.
Now, is that moving the pump station down to where they?
We can move it, we can have it anywhere in that general area.
Okay.
Yes, as long as we can get their gravity, that's not a major concern.
We're gonna make
Exact
another pretty
location.
barn?
I'm sure it will be
I would
something
think we'd move the
aesthetically
barn.
looking.
Can we
Good
move the
looking.
other one?
No, we got Bill first. But what we do there is we have the pump station, and then we have a force main coming over, and what's being proposed initially would tie into the West Haven force main right here in this, at Del Rio Pike. That's a 14-inch force main that goes all the way to the treatment plant, and we can use that for a while, till about, if I remember correctly, it's till we're about 40, 41, 42% developed in this area. We can use that 14-inch force main. But eventually we got to parallel that force main with a 20-inch force main when we get to a point of build out. To do what we're talking about as far as that, like I said, that would take this pump station out. We would have this. Now this serves, you see this black lines here? Those are the various sub-basins in this general larger basin study. This would serve this area over here and would provide service for the southwest basin also. But to serve the southwest in the future, we have some existing lines here that were put in by West Haven that are not large enough. We'll need to go in and replace or parallel. There's like there are 18 that needs to go to 24, and there's 15 or something like 15 inch or 12 inch will need to parallel with the 18 or replace with the 18. And if you scroll down just a little bit, please. We have sanitary sewer lines constructed to date down to this point here where West Haven built it down and we took out the Founders Point pump station. So we're down to this point. We would need to extend, it has to be extended at some point down the drainage. This wouldn't catch the western part drainage, and this is where we were looking at bringing the southwest pump over, bringing it into here. Then we have also this additional interceptor that comes over in this general area. As that is being developed, we'd be able to take out then this pump station, drain that all to this area here. Any questions concerning just this general area? Again, this southwest is a long ways off, but we've got to plan for it. And we need to look at when development happens in West Haven, we'll have to look at when is the best time and best opportunity to either parallel or upgrade that sewer where it's there.
I don't understand why if eventually you're gonna have to go to a 20-inch line, why don't you just do that on the front end so you don't have to dig up the earth twice?
Well, that's the reason being, again, is what I mentioned a minute ago as far as the amount of flow that you have available to pump. You have to be able to have a 2 feet per second flow to keep a scour velocity in the pipe. That's the initial problem we have as far as pumping without having a lot of flow coming to a pump station. The second issue you have, if you try to pump too much, well, that would be the issue with going to 20 also, but the other issue is if you get too much, we don't want it over 8 feet per second velocity in it too, so we have to go to a bigger size.
So you're saying you don't want to put too much in the pipe at the same time?
We don't want to have too little.
You have to have enough to make it work.
Too little. That's
Too little is worse than
too much.
Too much, because we can always go higher than 8 feet per second as far as the velocity of the pumped sewage. It's best not to, because when you do that, then you start having line breaks, blowouts, and things like that. So, so that's just a design issue, and it just, you know, and it may be that we would look at having both lines built initially for where we're building new stuff. But when we tie into this existing 14, it's just a capital cost then that we don't want to bear on the front end until we actually have to get to that point. Now, as we do all this, we got to keep in mind easements that we're going to have to come back later and do the additional parallel.
And dig up again.
And dig up again, yes ma'am. It happened, it's just the nature of providing these types of services in areas like this, yes ma'am.
David, you kind of said it as we would either parallel or we would increase the size of the line.
That was on the gravity.
Okay.
That was on the gravity. On the force main, we're looking at parallel. We're looking at paralleling. So what we would end up doing there is just kind of explain, when we reach the capacity of the 14-inch line, we have the 20-inch line parallel, and we go switch over to the 20-inch line and pump through it. Then when we get to the capacity of the 20-inch line, then we open up both lines and pump through both lines.
Well, can you put it in if you, even if you don't use it? Could you just go on and lay it?
We could, but it is a very high capital cost on the front end, or any time as far as that goes, so you're trying to delay.
And they begin to deteriorate.
And they do, yes.
They obsolesce, so it's not like once you put it in the ground, you are on the clock
Yeah.
eventually to
20 years
replace it.
start.
So if you put it in the ground 10 years too soon, you've given away half of its life or a third of its life or whatever.
But you reserve the easements and everything necessary to come back and do that.
There's
Well,
a
we
cost.
can reserve the easements without putting any money in the dirt.
Right, right, that's the reason you do
Well,
that.
Ms. Martin is asking, why don't we go ahead and put the right size in if we know eventually,
We'll need it.
well, and there's a reason.
There is reasons, yes,
Not to mention that it can be much more expensive to go bigger early.
correct.
One day they'll invent a pipe that's small that can expand. One day.
dirt around it.
They'll figure something out.
All right,
Okay,
let's go on.
if you'll scroll up again, please, Vicki. I guess we can just do it. All right, that explains the southwest and then the western part of the West Basin. What we're doing with this particular option is we're looking at this area right here is not sewered, ever. And the reason we're doing that is this area is residential, large lot development. And we just improved water availability for a lot right here that's going, and I forgot how many acres it was, but it's pretty big and it's going to have one single family on it. So that's what's there now. And we don't think that with the values of this property and houses and all, that anybody's going to come in here and buy all that up and put it together to make a development. If they do, we're going to have I'll explain this one in a minute. We'll have another pump station here. Some of that can gravity over to that, but we're looking at if that ever happens, we can always come in here with a low pressure system. That's what we did in Highgate, low pressure system, and get it back to one of the pump stations. Relatively easy, relatively capital inexpensive, but we just don't see that happening. So we're not really planning for that. However, we are taking into consideration, as it's being developed, the flows that will come from there. So we're allowing for those flows, but we're not allowing to do the construction or that particular facilities in that area. Does that make sense? I mean, does anybody
Well,
question?
that sort of goes back to what Margaret was talking about. I mean, we're not gonna put anything in the ground just for the heck of it.
Right.
How big's that area? Do you know off the top of your head? How big that is?
No, because we didn't do an area on it, or acreage on it. All right, now, the other part of the basin that we're looking at is this over here, which includes the Founder's Point, and some of the other areas, it goes, the school, the Rogers Shire is right in here. This is Founder's Point Pump Station. This is the Livingfield Moore property. And what we setting up there is that we would have another pump station at the north end there, which would actually be able to take out that pump station at Founder's Point. It would pump back over to the main pump station and then be pumped to the wastewater treatment plant.
You would not do that until,
It will not be done, and again, the reason for not doing anything there now, we won't do that until Livingfield Moore develops. Livingfield Moore's property develops. Let me rephrase that. So that's generally option one that we're looking at, the way to sewer this particular area. Now, if you go to,
David, will there be something written out on all this?
yes,
that
we'll
can
have,
sort of-
we just
okay.
haven't got that
I just
finalized.
want to reassure everybody, we're not asking you to remember everything that's being
No,
said tonight. We're
we have
giving it
not
to you
got,
pretty
we're trying
fresh
to
as
get
we have
this,
it.
we're trying to get this before you, where you can start hearing what we're talking about. We have a developer that's out there trying to do things, and we've met with them, and we're trying to coordinate it all to where we can get to a point where we have an acceptable plan by everybody, and we can go forward with it. So, best way to do it before we got the final report was, let's have a presentation, talk about it. You have an understanding, we'll get the report to you. I think we'll be able to get the report to you next week, actually, but that's the reason we're going through this process.
Alderman Peterson,
Let me
you
say
have,
to
go ahead.
you, it would just be so much more helpful, though, if we actually had the pieces of paper when you're first doing the presentation, because I can make notes on it. I mean, I'm sorry, I'm just saying, if we just had the pieces of paper while we're hearing about it would help. And it's not just on this, but on some other things too. If we just, as I say, just had that so that we could look at, and I do appreciate the fact that you're gonna give us a lot more information, but it would really help, even in your first presentation, if we had the paper that we could refer to, and we could also read off of, as I've had a problem before too.
Well, and then one of the questions we have for the group is, this is something we can bring to the whole board.
Right, this is
At a work session. I mean, these are big issues and big development-related kind of strategies, how we're gonna handle infrastructure going forward. And so we're giving you something about it as fresh as we get it so that you can start thinking about it, and then give you a little more time to think about it. Then we give you the full report and context. And we'll kind of follow your lead on what you're comfortable with.
Right, and I will tell you, we do have 2 other basin studies that are being completed, and plus then a connector routing study that is being completed. So we got 3 other sanitary sewer basin type situations that will be coming before you. You will have those in writing prior to. This one, we're, again, as I said a minute ago, we're kind of pushing this a little bit because we have a developer out there that's trying to get his situation squared away as to what he's doing. And so we pushing it a little bit. This is the priority as far as what we can see is what needs to be done as far as finishing first on these basin studies now. So that's the reason we are pushing this, but you should have it pretty quick.
Alderman Marker to,
Dave, I have absolutely no problem with these studies about the basins. That's just fine. But I tell you, that developer has got more to think about than the water and the sewer out there. And he's got Del Rio Pike to think about. And I told him that. I said, until you come with some kind of plan to enter that development other than Del Rio, I will not support it. And I don't care how much water and sewer they've got. That road, we're not going to get into the same issue that we've had on South Carruthers and McEwen and all those places. That's exactly where we're going to be, right back smack in the middle of that.
That, and I'm not sort of trying to downgrade that issues or anything as far as roads or any of that, but this is something that just takes a little longer for us to go out and get
that's
information,
fine.
Bring back to you. And this plan, when we settle on the plan, this will be a plan that will be, that can be implemented now, 20 years from now. If everything stops, you still have a plan for what you want to do. The only caveat to any of this is if you go and change your densities for what you're going to allow to happen, because this is based on what we know is allowed density now in your long-range plan, et cetera. So that's the only caveat. This particular plan is the option 2, and
so how many
We're looking at the
options,
same
so how
kind
many
of issues on
options?
roadway access,
good.
kind of stuff. I mean, we do the same kind of thing. There's just more other elements to this.
Yeah, I
there
do
are
understand.
there are a lot of other elements
We
concerning
know,
any
yeah.
development.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's all the infrastructure. Right now, we're just looking at the sanitary sewer. We're not even talking about water right now, although there's a big water line out there. But
Is that our water?
yes, it is.
Alderman
We have a
Barnhill.
24-inch line out there, actually, comes along Del Rio.
Let's recognize Alderman Barnhill.
I'd just as soon have the information as you get it, such as this. It may not be complete. I don't know that it would be complete a year from now. So whenever you have information like this, for me personally, it's as easy to kind of look at that. If I want to go out there and look at that area, I can do that. Then if we want to come back and do the presentation to the full board and you've got your written documentation, so I'm not in all waiting till you get everything and then you try to stick it to us and we've got it all at one time, because that's just not the way. I mean, and I know Ann said she wants this. I'm telling you, I'm satisfied with this. I want more. But I'm satisfied with this as a starting point, so.
Okay.
I just want to say one thing. I didn't mean that they would have all the information that he's, giving out right now. I just meant if we just had the pictures, that we could look at up closer where we
Okay.
can read them and, no, I know what you're talking about, and I apologize if it sounded like
Yeah,
that.
we can-
Oh, that's-
No, I just meant just have the paper.
Sure.
Okay,
Okay.
we just finished option 1, now you're about to tell us about option 2.
Finished option 1.
Okay, option 2.
And there's what, 27 options?
Oh.
Is that right?
Not tonight.
28, I'm sorry. Three
Okay,
options?
all right. And this is a good heads up, I agree, Alderman.
This is option 2, and it's real quick. This is same as option 1, except this is showing the pump station on the northern edge of the Rogers property, our project boundaries, and that would be right along Del Rio Pike, right close to the West Harpeth River, and that would mean we would be bucking all this grade along the river as far as the bluff, et cetera. I do want to point out too that, of course, I think a lot of people will understand that we could actually cross the river and get away from the bluff, because the other side, I mean, it's like any bluff area of a river. Typically, you got a floodplain on one side and a bluff on the other. We could do that. However, this is all county. It's not in urban growth boundary. Don't foresee it being in the urban growth boundary ever. So we're trying to keep this in an area where we can actually use it for what's needed for the city of Franklin versus going outside. And we can't provide sewer out here as the laws state now, because it's not in our urban growth boundary. So
I have a question.
Aren't we providing sewer to parts of the county that will never be in our urban growth boundary?
that was, we
By
are,
agreement, yes.
by agreement, we are.
It should work both ways.
Well, most of that stuff come up before the urban growth boundary laws. So that's kind of the reason for that. But anyway, that's the main difference right there is this particular pump station location. And when we do that, then we feel that we can probably get gravity sewer out of this whole area from either this pump, or going to this pump station or to the main pump station. So we haven't shown that as a,
So that area in the first option, we weren't serving, in this option we
We
do
could.
because of the location of the
right,
force
cause
main.
the location of the pump station.
Pump station.
Yes, yes. Now, if you go to the next one, which I forgot the numbers now. I think it's 0805. Now, what this is, option 3, this is basically back to the original West Basin location of the pump station, which is at the meeting of the waters. One pump station location here, the other one there. This is at the meeting of the waters, which provides one pump station for the whole drainage area versus having two. Again, we could bring back the southwest, et cetera. And again, we'd be bucking this grade of the bluffs, et cetera, in through there. Other issue we would have there is access to a pump station. That's a large floodplain area. It'd be awful expensive, even getting a station site, I'm sure, from that property owner. I don't think you'd want that there, but anyway.
A barn wouldn't work, would it?
Yeah, barn probably wouldn't be good enough for them. But now, the other thing, in looking at all this, if we were here, then we're right across the river, actually, from the Barry's Chapel, I think's the name of it now, sewage treatment plant. But that's just for your information.
Well, what does that matter? They're,
If they keep asking us to take them over. And if we did and we wanted to do something like this, we could actually bring all of our gravity to that point and then pump back. Or if the state would allow us, we could use a second or another treatment plant there. But it's not something that we're advocating. It's not something we even want to consider at this point. So that's the reason we stopped it right here. So that's the three options. And if you go to the 0806, please. Here's your cost estimate. Keep in mind, this is a high-level cost estimate. I mean, 10, 20,000 foot look at this for option 1. This is full build out. full build out. And I want to emphasize, this is full build out. This is all going to be done in stages. It's going to be done in phases. Here's, this would be a total cost of 33 million plus. This is for the West Basin only. Scroll down a little bit, please. Should be on there, yeah. Then we go look at adding the cost to bring in the Southwest 1 basin, you're adding more money.
Oh, is that two, option two?
No, this is still option one, but this is West Basin only. This is you adding in, when you bring in that Southwest 1 basin. So that's looking at 34 million. So, anyway, that's a generalized
That
cost.
34.6 is the whole thing, west and southwest, or, I'm trying to understand why it's only $1.5 million more. Is that right?
Contingencies, et cetera, well, this is a 15% contingency, for,
That's 12 right there in that section.
yeah. This, I think is the difference in that you take, well, I'm not sure, it is strange looking. We'll have to check that and make sure we got that right. Sorry about that, but that's what we had.
Yeah, that's what I was wondering.
Would you,
That's the dangers of having high-level estimates.
Okay.
But anyway, that's what we're looking at. That's what we're looking at. I will tell you that, as I said before, we've met with the developer. We're discussing with them what needs to be done initially. We will be getting with them, meeting with them more. We'll be deciding what phasing that we need to be looking at. And also there will be agreements that have to be done. So that's where we're at. As we go forward from this point, we will get you the report. But we're looking at asking for you to actually approve the option that we were looking at as far as sewer in this basin. We'll be bringing you a resolution to where that is voted on for the option that we want to look at, where everybody knows in the future what we're talking about is how we want to do this. The resolution will be written that, and I'm not sure, one reason I hadn't started, but I'm not sure how to write it exactly, that keep in mind there are going to be some things, variations to what is shown on that map in the future, as far as to being able to actually serve the area when you get out and start designing, et cetera. So we have to allow for that. Plus, there may be some slight variation, but keep in mind also there will be phasing. There will be a lot of phasing in how we go forward with this. So, Mark, you have
Sorry to interrupt. I believe that the cost differential is the difference between, excuse me, replacing or paralleling the West Haven interceptor.
Oh,
I think
okay.
that was the difference.
Is that where that came in different?
Okay, yeah. But anyway, that's what we're headed toward. I think right now this is to be on the next board
Well,
work
we were
session.
gonna ask you what you wanted to do with this. If you wanted us to bring this to a work session with the full report and go over it, we have most everybody here, but not everybody here. And we've given you a lot, and we've just given it to you in this manner. So we're just putting that agenda together right now in terms of what that looks like. And that was a question for this group is, what's your preference, how you want this given back to you? We'll have the report, we think, within the week.
The report definitely before the work session. We need
Yes.
time to
Yes.
explore it for at least several days
Yeah.
before the upcoming work session. So whatever that timeframe is.
Probably not have much else,
I think that's an excellent, excellent,
so that we don't have to rush through.
What?
I had a couple
not
questions.
stick another dozen things on the agenda, but
Yeah.
if that's as big a project as that is,
Yeah.
you need time to go over that, and if it's an hour that you want to devote to that, or whatever it is, we not have 25 other things on there that we're trying to rush through.
Okay, you've given us 3 options here. And the first one seems to be, is that kind of where you're leaning?
The first one actually is the cheapest, and it is the direction that staff will be going for a recommendation with, yes.
Okay.
You don't, Margaret? Yeah. Okay. All right. Alderman Skinner.
Integrated water and sewer plan, was any of the cost of this included in that? And when they figured things on sewer, did they figure most things pumped, or did they figure most things gravity?
The cost of this is not a part of the integrated water resource plan. Other than there may have been a line item in there that's talking about on an annual basis, trying to look at doing some extensions of lines. I can't remember exactly what we had there, but
This is in addition to those numbers that we showed for future sewer treatment plants?
yes, it has nothing to do with
This
this.
is more collection system.
This is more collection system, yes. This is the collection system.
These basin plans have been in existence and updated over time for the past 15 years or so. And CDM did incorporate the basin studies when they did evaluate treatment capacity and overall collection system capacity, but this drills down to the more detailed scenarios when you get into the individual basins. So as you move forward and densities change and things of that nature, you have to come back and occasionally revisit these specific basin plans, and then you end up with a recommendation. So
But I will tell you that the Southwest One basin was not included in the
initially
integrated water resource plan because we had not had any consideration with that at that time.
I'm just concerned of these other basins. You mentioned there's 2 others out there that we haven't even,
No, the other basins we have studies for already. We're doing updates.
okay.
We're just doing updates on basin studies
Okay.
right now. And it came about because, again, we had developments coming in and talking to us about how do we get served.
That's sort of how you start the updates.
Yes, ma'am. And since development is picking up again, obviously, we wanted to go out and do these updates. And again, we're trying to get to the numbers as best we can of what is anticipated in the basin. Some of the basins, or some of the numbers are higher density than what was used before, so we're having to update based on that. And then the other thing, one of the basins is 2-pronged in that a part of the Spencer Creek, South Prong of Spencer Creek, which we've been looking at as far as the area there for the Carruthers and McEwen corridor study. We also looked at that area as far as a sewer study. We just hadn't had to bring that back to you because it's looking at as an upgrade of an existing sewer that is very small amount of upgrade as far as line size, but it is kind of expensive. We'll be bringing that to you. But we're looking at one of the basins, again, it's the Watson Branch Basin and the Mays Creek basins, because in order to get or to free up flow in the South Prong Basin, we're looking at taking off pump stations that are pumping over into the South Prong. We have areas of the city right now that are pumping into the South Prong, McKay's Mill, Breezeway, that are pumping into the South Prong that actually are supposed to go another direction. So we're updating to make sure that what's in those basins will handle that. Plus, we've already done the South Prong of what we need to do, and that's just a small upgrade actually. But then we have a development that came in and talked to us also in the Mays Creek Basin. That's one of the other basins we're studying update on. And it was a higher
That's
density.
south, isn't it?
No, it's east. Mays Creek is east. The Mays Creek, mouth of the Mays Creek enters the Harpeth River just to the east of Arno Road.
Yeah.
So
Almost
we're
like
looking
they
at
have-
that, and they have a higher density than what was used before.
Let me come back to
Proposed.
the integrated water plan piece. The way I would look at that is the integrated water plan provided you a 30-year outlook and a very big picture around the needs. These basin studies look at specific development scenarios, what needs to happen in the collection system to feed into the needs that were identified from a treatment and other standpoints. So they still very much fit together, but this is a more detailed look at the potential development impact in those areas and what we would need to do to accommodate it. So it all is in sync with the integrated plan, but it is taking it
It's the
into
pipes and-
undeveloped or less developed areas or undeveloped areas and saying, okay, here's how it's envisioned to develop. We have some very specific examples now that cause us to think about some of those areas, and we've updated those to try to reflect that. So it still fits with that planning, but it is a more refined kind of aligning development with those areas and what the infrastructure needs to be to then feed into those treatment capacity models and the other things that we did with the integrated plan.
It's an extension of that planning, basically.
Okay,
So-
Alderman Skinner.
So I remember one of the numbers for us tweaking the existing sewer treatment plant was we could tweak it to 16 million gallons a day.
Right.
Well, this, if we add these, it's gonna take it right up to that, with nothing else.
These numbers are feeding back into the design efforts that are going on right now. And go ahead, David, I know I.
Well, I was just going to tell you that we actually, and we're also doing additional study citywide as to what we've already have approved as far as sewer and water, and what is in the meal to be approved, which we're doing that study to look at the ultimate flows that we have in the mill right now to have to take care of. But to answer your question, what we have approved right now is it comes out, I think, at 5 point something million gallons per day average daily flow. We have a 12 million gallon per day plant that's running at about 8 million gallons. Add 5, that's 13. So we're already pushing the limits of what we're proposing to do. Although we would have enough capacity, we would be looking at that. If you'll remember, we're required to, at 80% capacity, to start planning to upgrade again. So that's the reason we're looking at these numbers, because all of a sudden it looks like that our timelines for some of the things that we looked at is shrinking, and it has to do with, and as a lot of us, and being one, that have been around for a long time, we've been in slow growth. And a lot of people around here haven't seen this fast growth that we've experienced, and we're trying to get ahead of it. So we're doing a lot of in-house type studying and these type studies to sort of bring some of this stuff to you to see what's expected.
And some of those volumes David referred to are very large developments that will develop over a
time.
long period. So that's, for example, that's all of Berry Farms. That's everything.
All of West
Which
Texas.
isn't going to develop in the next 5 years.
Right.
Or, you know what I mean? It's going to take time. It is going to take time to get there. You're not going to develop all of that in that time period. So that's what we're looking at is trying to project out when that happens. But it does shorten that time frame around when you need to start thinking about the step beyond the step that we're in right now. And that's just good planning. And layer into that, we've got permitting processes we got to think about, and the integrated plan does us a lot of good in that it developed a very good model that the regulators are very comfortable with, it seems. But we still have there are a lot of pieces you got to put together between now and when you're getting those capacities to come online. So that's why we're pushing these basin studies through now to kind of understand that and then start working through those.
We're not gonna be able to, I know, we definitely need that workshop session where we can really spend at least an hour or more on this discussion. But this is good that we know that this is coming. We'll take a few more questions.
I guess the other thing is the disconnect in I see in part of our sewer and planning. We all know if you put sewer in there, you're going to enable more density. And when we enable more density, then things like roads and all these things will follow. So that's the disconnect. We'll say, well, we're planning for this sewer, but the density in the future can, well, look at South Brothers and McEwen, you know. There's a disconnect between what the allowable density is and what those capacities are that we planned for years ago. And again,
It's a moving
Well,
target.
that,
It's a
that,
moving
com-
target.
that particular thing came up somewhat to the fact that from the time the planning and the construction for the roadway system in that area, immediate area, was done, even though we were looking at that we would probably have to add the third lane, and considering that, densities went up. From the planning time and the construction time, then densities that were approved for some of those, or a good portion of those projects in that general vicinity have gone up. So that's what kicked in the immediate need of really rushing to try to get something looked at before they got built. So, yes, you're right in that densities is it, but everything we plan for, when we're planning for it, at the time we're planning for it, we're looking at the long-range plan, which has densities dictated to what is allowed in a particular area. So we plan to that. Now, if it changes, yes, we got to go back. And that's the reason I said if these densities out here change, we got to go back. Nobody knows future of what, if that's going to do. You try to plan the best you can, and that's what we're doing. We're using the tools that we have available, which is the planning tools, the design criteria tools, all that, to make plans of how we can best serve, and that's how we have to do
I
it.
guess what I'm thinking is there ought to be something in these applications that says, this is what was planned, this is what the infrastructure, and this is exceeding what that is. So we can consider that before we jump into multiples of that.
You
And
mean
then say, oh,
approving new
gee,
developments?
Yeah. There is right now, we're gonna take these basin plans long range, and they have projections of densities that are used. And when these developers come forward with their development plans, if they're not lining up with that long-range utility planning, they're not getting approval until we go back, revise these basin plans, bring them back to the board for approval of that long-range
that makes
plan.
sense.
And we're gonna stop them at that planning commission stage, so that they're not even
Good.
presented.
Good.
So we are
We
watching.
don't want to see it.
Yeah, we are watching
You
that.
may recommend that it gets stopped.
We will recommend.
That may or may
You are
not.
correct. You are
But that
correct.
makes sense.
One other thing that,
That's all that staff can do is recommend.
yeah, true.
And when you do that and you recommend it, if the planning commission overrides, that still can come to the Board of Merit Alderman. And I'll be perfectly frank with you, the buck stops here. And if we've got something set out and we've got $50 million planned and it's suddenly an $80 million sewer project, we can look at it, we understand it, we know what we did. And if you've got a trigger in there that kicks in that says they're at whatever the plan is, and we know what we have planned for these basins, and we know how we have planned, whether they're agricultural or whether they're industrial or whether they're whatever they are. And, you know, you gotta have something to go by. That, I think you've got a plan here, and you've got figures to go by, and I think you've got numbers and density to go by when you start planning something like this.
But-
Nobody can tell you that you're gonna go to the planning commission, and there's 8 people sitting up there, and you're gonna get 8 no vote to not deny, to deny that particular plan based upon the fact that it increases or exceeds the plan and the density that we planned on 10 years ago. Ain't gonna happen.
Yeah, they need to know ahead of time, just like you said, when the application comes in, it's important for the developer to know that this succeeds and therefore could be a potential.
We are spending time the last couple months, and we'll, going forward, Paul and engineering staff, talking with design professionals about the availability process, to be clear about how we're doing this and how we look at the allowed densities, and that's how we'll issue availability. And if they're within that, we'll move forward. If they're something different, then we have to look at it and work through this process that Paul described. So we've been spending some time so that people understand that, and that it provides sort of that check and balance about what's planned for and what enters the development process.
Two more questions.
Okay.
I know in the past we've said that usually we want to build gravity sewers because essentially once you get that in, you don't have the cost of replacing pumps and electricity. But we're weighing what the original installation is versus how many years out on a pump system.
well, pump systems, you have a life expectancy of your pump of 10, 12, 15 years. A gravity system, you have a life on the gravity lines of 100 years. There's systems that are a lot longer and older than that, especially with materials we're starting to have available nowadays. And so you're talking about replacing pumps on a pump system, you know, 5 times in the same length of time, or 100 years or whatever. So plus you have the valving in a pump system, low pressure pump system. You have valves, check valves, all kinds of things like that that are more inclined to go bad, that you have to go fix, et cetera. Then the gravity system is it's using gravity. So it's just a less maintenance type system.
Flows downhill there.
It flows downhill.
You reduce a great deal of risk too, power failures, mechanical failures, or other things.
So my question again is, most of what we're looking at is pumps rather than,
How much gravity
Gravity on these.
versus pressures that,
most of this is pump.
Your options.
What we've just
what we've
looked
just
at.
talked
It's
about.
mostly gravity.
Oh,
You have.
That we have 2 pump stations that we're looking at to serve this whole general area out there. We're gonna have to have pump stations because this is downstream of the treatment plant.
'Cause of-
So we gotta pump it back. So we have 2 pump stations that we're looking at having in that area for that whole western side, including the side, or it'd be 3 if we do
Including
the
existing
southwest.
areas, yeah.
So, yeah, includes it. So it's basically a gravity system. Now, when you get to the pump stations, these particular pump stations will be of a size that we actually have to provide standby power for the power outages and things like that. So
'Cause bad
we are
things
looking at
happen,
that. So, yes.
The other question was on, we're gonna have to install a lot of sewer to get to this new proposal. You know, how is the cost of that shared with?
That's negotiations that would have to be done with the developer. We're looking at basically, we staff, and I'll tell you up front, us staff was looking at anything off-site of them, that 30, there's part of 42 and then 36 to get the West Haven out of service that we were looking at, that we would be, the city of Franklin would be doing. And then looking at the developer for that work that's on their site, plus including the pump station or some form of the pump station. And the other issue that we've mentioned to the developer is we don't expect them to build a 15 million gallon per day capacity pump station. We do expect them to build a pump station of some size that is easily modified and or expanded that will allow us to go to 15 million gallons per day to handle what we're expected to do. We don't need 15 million gallons a day for a long time. So, well, we'll mention that it's not in the report yet, and that's one of the things that's not finished. We are actually looking at possibilities of, or the availability and possibilities of being able to put an equalization basin in this drainage out here, which would cut down on our ultimate pumping need.
Basically a holding.
It's a holding tank. It's what we got to do at the wastewater plant already. That's part of the plan that's going forward at the wastewater plant is EQ basins.
Not to be
Equalization
confused with the
basin.
water tank, by the way.
Right. But
It
you're
looked
saying
like one though.
the extension then from this pump that's on Charlotte North to their boundary would be city.
That's something that staff has looked at, that we think that may be something the city would take on as a city project. Yes. That would be, I guess if we go forward with that, that'd be a recommendation we would make to you. I'm not saying we're making that right now. It may change. But that's only recommendation. I mean, we still got to negotiate with this developer as to what has to be done and sizing that has to be done as far as the phasing, et cetera. So that's what we're looking at. The only thing we've really come to any kind of conclusion with the developer at this point is we got to have a pump station, we got to have interceptor lines, and we feel pretty comfortable that we can move the site down closer to their southern boundary. We feel pretty comfortable about that. That's about it at this point, and we're, like I said, we're dealing with them. They're looking at some bullet points to send to us as far as an agreement. So we hadn't got that yet. We just met with them
Okay, all right, we're gonna move on. I think staff know what we need in order to be prepared for our next discussion on this item.
And
I-
we'll bring that to the full board,
I'd bring it to the workshop.
yeah, workshop, but
Yes.
we'll have to look at time, where we have time.
Item 9, consideration of a professional service agreement.
You may want to move the workshop up to a 4 if you can get
Yeah.
consensus with all.
Well,
all
the
or
next
something
work,
else.
the next work session also has the integrated growth plan
We're
for
following up on the road
Oh,
road integrated.
infrastructure we just
We
talked
can't,
about.
that'll
Yeah.
take up the whole.
I know, it might be too much,
Yeah.
that's what I was
Yeah.
thinking about.
Do we have to go through that whole thing again?
Well,
Page by page,
It's up to
whole
you.
500
All right,
pages.
okay.
We will follow your lead.
Wait a minute. We saved, I saved all my papers, so you don't need to waste the paper to send it to me again, because I've already got mine.
You already got your copy?
Yeah.
Got notes on it?
The one piece you didn't get, though, is the diagrams of the hybrid plan. We're
Yeah.
gonna make sure you have that. We should have had that in there. We didn't have that in the last time.
I have
so
pictures of it.
You'll have that.
I thought I did.
I don't think you do.
Printed off what you sent to us.
Yeah,
But you did not.
but in
have
what we
that.
gave you wasn't there. We need to give you that one section, so.
all right, item 9.
Don't do them both.
Don't do them both at the same night. People will might, okay.
All right, we're gonna move on. Can we move on? All right. Consideration of a professional service agreement, City of Franklin contract number 2013-0021 with CDM Smith for the construction, administration, engineering, and inspection services for the Carruthers Parkway South project in an amount not to exceed $990,000 funded as part of the Carruthers Parkway South project under the CIP budget, capital
This,
budget.
we would ask that, pull this and bring it back to you.
Pull it.
There's some work to be done.
Okay,
Full.
motion?
I don't think you
Do we
don't
need
need
to-
We'll just bring it
No,
back to
okay.
you.
You don't need no
Or
motion?
bring it,
All
do you want to
right,
bring it to the next CIC, or do you want to bring it, will you bring it to through a work session?
CIC.
Yes.
Okay,
okay.
so you'll see it next month.
All right. Item 10, consideration of resolution 2013-13, a resolution declaring certain right-of-ways on Liberty Pike as surplus. Ms. Parker.
We went through this previously. This property owner has asked for gaining some old right-of-way of Liberty Pike to add to his project to have, I guess, better access and frontage. It is surplus. We're recommending that we keep the, what was it, 100-foot right-of-way?
100-foot right of
100-foot right-of-way for Liberty Pike, and we have the cost of the, what he's asking for is,
estimated 2,000.
that's $2,580. We're also, to keep the 100 feet completely, we're going to need to get a portion of his northeast corner. This, I guess we got it right in here.
Okay.
To keep the 100 feet, my understanding, we're gonna need a little bit there. He's agreed that he can do that. It has to be served, we don't know how much it is. And when we get that done, then we'll take the same square footage value that we're asking for from him, apply it to that, reduce the total cost to compensate for it. So that's what we're looking at doing. There are some conditions that are being placed, and that's basically this whole area be a public utility drainage and access easement, because we have lines through there and stuff like that. It'll be his property, we'd have easements.
Yeah. And right now, he's accessing that property through that triangle.
No, he's accessing it actually off basically that alley behind him up there. That is the main access to the property.
Just, that's it.
That little, yeah. So what's there now? Is it just vegetation?
It's vacant land.
Yeah, it's vacant.
Okay.
It's vacant land. There's no absolute access at this point. When we want to get there, we park in the alley and walk in from that side. My understanding from the city is that they're going to ask us to bring our driveway in next to the AT&T building, which is right next door to us, which is that tiny, yeah, right there on that side. So we'll come off of Liberty Pike there.
And we would review driveway access.
Do a driveway right there.
Yeah, we would
Yeah.
review that when the site plan comes in. This isn't committing us to any access to Liberty, and Mr. Ken Adler, he is the property owner of.
Give us your full name.
Yeah,
just so
go
for
I'm
the
sorry,
record.
Ken Adler, and I'm the owner, I just acquired the property.
So when you get that, is that all you own there? Just that
Well,
little white spot?
No, we own the
owns
we
it.
own that
Oh, you-
vacant piece.
Oh, the
He owns
industrial
this, he's
park.
wanting to add this to it.
We picked up that lot so that we could build a building. I own a glass company. We need a bigger building. And so when we looked at this, there were a couple of things going on. Number one, if that piece of property sits there, we're gonna end up mowing it and taking care of it just because it's part of the front of our property.
We like for you to do
I
that.
know you do. As well, up in the front right corner, which would be up in
Let's call
this area right up in here, if you can show it, with your pointer, yeah. Up in there, there is I think it's considered a 100-year flood zone. There's a riverlet that goes through there. There's some stuff going on there where we can't touch or deal with that property at all in terms of using it. And the way it is right now, the front of the lot next door comes down a hill, and it's kind of a park-like. The bottom line is it's a park-like area that you can get to from the sidewalk. And so what we were planning on doing was maintaining that, adding that piece of land that we're going to acquire from you into that area, and basically creating what is about a 10,000 square foot open space with some trees, maybe a park bench, whatever, and just leave it as an open area on the front end of our property.
This is Liberty Creek that comes through here.
Correct.
That's,
Listen, and that, remember, in the 2010 flood, that piece got cut off too.
this here.
So please keep in mind, in the 2010 flood, that flooded, and that's what cut off the other end of Eddie Lane.
Were you here?
But just for a short time, but it did.
And again, that's part of that property. Actually, that property slopes up. There's about a 10-foot grade change on my lot. And the initial plan is to not change that, but to leave that as natural as can be.
So Ann, what are you saying, if he leaves it natural?
No, that's what I'm just saying, you know, you do need to watch out for that, but see.
But you just got through
He's
saying
just
what,
gonna leave it
No,
now.
Yeah,
no,
yeah,
no.
that's a good
You
thing.
need to, because you don't,
That's what he said he was
it
gonna
could make it worse some other places, is what I'm trying to say.
okay.
Okay, how do we, any more discussion?
Let me just say, the original discussion that I had with Paul, and I want to bring it up, was when we first started this, there was discussion about being of such a low value, and you guys needing some of the property that I own, I'm wanting to acquire some of the property that you guys have that's excess, that we would potentially trade out that property, and rather than paying for that property from you, I would incur the cost of the survey, the appraisals, you know, the actual plat map, which has to be done. Whereas in a normal real estate transaction, if two people are involved and you're buying some of our land and I'm buying some of your land, the norm would be to split those charges. So what I'm requesting is the generosity of the board to allow us to trade that land, and then we will pick up the actual cost of the survey, the replatting of the map.
That's very kind of you.
There's three options here that we
Which one
we're
are you
looking at
recommending?
here.
Figured it was a fair trade.
We actually have two options here. I didn't put the third option. But essentially, the first option
He's giving you a
is-
third option.
He's giving you a third option right now. We did discuss this early on, that it may be something that the board would consider, but essentially, option one is where he pays the appraised value. which is what we're recommending.
Which is the general policy of the city with surplus land. Not that there aren't some other issues that you might want to consider, but we follow the typical policy on surplus land for option 1.
Correct, and that's based on our policy, the way we evaluate. Option 2 would be because we don't want the long-term maintenance of it, assuming he covers all costs, which is the same as option 1, that the board may want to just give that away to the property owner. And then the second option, I believe, was dispose, or just to maintain the property, to do
just
nothing.
to hold on to it.
Have no action whatsoever, so. But the staff option was to pay the appraised value.
Could we, we're not making a final decision on this tonight, can we don't have any numbers in terms of the relative trade-off of what Mr. Adler's
Just now
talking about
proposed.
versus the value of the property and kind of the give and take and how close those two are to one another? Is that something we could
Yeah.
do fairly quickly, just
And
so
bring
that
back next
between
month?
now and when it's on? I'd like to keep it moving to the board.
Okay.
We could just try to fill in those blanks of what option 3 really looks like and give this to you.
Mm-hmm.
If
we can do
the
that.
value of the two pieces of property or anything close, whatever that means,
Then it's a wash.
I'm willing to swap and do our easements, and you do the survey, and you do the plat recording or whatever else it was that was part of all the cost, and I mean, if we're just exchanging checks and he writes us one and we buy the right of way from him on his piece of property, I don't see that to me, that's not the best way to go. But you do whatever you want to do on it
Yeah,
and
the way-
recommend. But now, we're swapping a $2,500 piece of property for a $10,000 piece of property. That's not the way we want to go, but I doubt very seriously that we're doing
I
that.
can tell you, the appraisal was 500, the survey is 900, and then the cost of the replatting is gonna be several $1,000s.
See, we need those
So-
numbers. If we could get those,
Put 'em
I
in.
think it'd be an easy
Put 'em in.
decision.
So we'll develop an
Yeah.
option 3 that actually lays out those different numbers on
Yeah.
each side of the ledger, if you will, here, and then
Okay.
you know how much this may just
So-
make sense as a swap or not.
So what should our vote be tonight on this? Just,
I would just say vote to move it on to the board.
Could I
Maybe
have-
we'll put it on both agendas next time for the work session so that we can walk through this explanation, and then you can vote on it that same night, and it
Okay.
stays on track with the same decision-making.
I move that we recommend this to the board.
Second.
we have a proper motion and second.
Or
All
to
in
the work-
favor?
To the work session and then the board vote.
Yeah, we'll
yeah.
put it on both.
Okay, all in favor?
Thank you.
Aye. Okay.
Appreciate your time.
It passes.
You're
Thank
welcome.
you. All right, now we're down to our street projects and our water management project and our stormwater project. First, item 11, street project status report.
I'll just hit the highlights, and if there's questions, just let me know. The Mac Hatcher project, I did want to provide an update. With the traffic impact study being completed, we're still waiting on TDOT to give us formal direction as to remove the roundabouts and go forward with the design of the signalized intersection. The reason why we're waiting, and that's important, is because if we're going to get reimbursed for our design services, we need to have that in writing and look at our contract associated with modifying that. So what we've done is, while we're waiting on that letter, we've already negotiated the scope of services with our consultant, CDM Smith. So as soon as we get that letter from TDOT, we're going to bring that full package forward. And I spoke with their assistant director today up there, and they're still routing it through the different divisions to get that letter finalized.
I just can't figure out what's taking so long.
Now,
It's
the,
been weeks.
The news, though, is this study was not complete a month ago when we talked about this. This is,
So they moving, they
we've gotten
expediting.
formal notice that it's completed now.
Yes.
And we have that. We did not have that when we were talking about this last month. So there is some progress, but what Paul laid out for you is exactly on target. We're ready to have that work go forward, and it makes sense for the designer that's done all the other design work to pick that up. And that will need to be through us, but we want to provide that gets reimbursed by the state, because we've already spent our $5 million that we agreed to spend on this project.
All right, the letter, once we get the letter that you say you're waiting for, then can we start the next day, or do we still have to go through more?
We're going to try to start the next day. There may be a contract
design.
that comes with it, but we're going to start the next day with finalizing the design. Now, we're still waiting on TDOT to release their 3-year funding program. If it falls into that category, this project, then it would be eligible for funding for construction. But this will at least get us through the design stage so that everything is ready to go to construction as soon as the state allocates funding.
Or at this point, we would call the redesign stage.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Moving on to the next one, Hillsborough Road improvements. They're right now working on relocating utilities and making progress with that. South Carruthers Parkway Extension Project, looking to bid that project in April or May.
Oh,
We're finalizing right-of-way acquisition with 2 of the developments that we have agreements with to donate that. We just need to finalize that, and then we're bidding in April or May time period. Carlisle Lane, we just issued
Yeah.
the notice to proceed, and you'll
Yeah,
notice
I've
they're
seen
going
the
to start
signs.
closing down the roadways out there.
Noticed they were having a 2-month shutdown on that.
Yes.
And then the final one that I do want to highlight is McEwen Drive at Wilson Pike, the intersection improvements. We're still working with utility companies to relocate. As soon as those utility companies relocate over CSX tracks, we're then going to issue our notice to proceed for our contractor to start work out there. And
We've been
actually,
waiting on that for a while.
we've been waiting for, yes, and it's just dealing with CSX, and the
Yeah.
utility companies are doing everything possible to try to get their facilities out of the way.
Yeah.
We just have to wait for the CSX approval.
Let me just note too, we did receive payment from the Williamson County Schools for the improvements out there for that contribution. So that part of that
Checks
deal
in the
is,
bank.
yeah, completed.
And then finally, Eastern Flank Battlefield Park, we just issued the notice to proceed, had the pre-construction meeting this week. So they're going to start surveying out there, and within the next 2-3 weeks, you should see a contractor mobilized out there and working. So making a lot of progress, and we're excited about it.
All right, great to treat. Any additional street concerns from anybody?
Madam Chairman.
Okay, over here.
What was the bid date again on South Carruthers?
April, May is potentially when we're looking at bidding it.
We have one. Alderman Peterson, okay. All right, we're gonna move on. If there's no more street project updates, sound like things are moving forward. Item 12, water management project status update. Water management projects.
The only 2 that I'm going to highlight is the one that you just awarded a contract to, 7th Avenue. Hopefully we'll start construction in April. This is that West Main Phase 2 project that relocates some of those sewer McDonald's from West Main to Hillsborough. So hopefully we'll start construction on that in April. And then as Mr. Parker had stated before, the Spencer Creek Basin, as part of the McEwen Carruthers corridor, there were some significant improvements that were necessary to upsize some sewer to accommodate some of that development. So we hope to have the details of the construction costs and the professional services agreement to start that design out in that area at the next CIP meeting.
All right, on E, 11th Avenue Water and Sewer, does that mean you're gonna dig up something and put some pipes in on 11th Avenue?
Yes, well, we're looking at multiple options. We're looking at rehab, which is trenchless, but also some locations will be digging up and replacing, especially for the water line.
Will that go from
Natchez.
West Main
To
to
Natchez.
96 on 11th?
No, it's Natchez.
It's Natchez.
Natchez.
Between Natchez
West
and
Main to
West
Natchez.
Oh, so it won't go all the,
It's from West Main.
West Main to
Natchez.
Natchez.
all right, okay, that way.
Is that sidewalks?
That away.
And also as part of that
We're looking at
project,
street
we're
improvements.
looking at street improvements to add sidewalks. Essentially, since we're tearing up the road,
Yeah.
we're looking at what we can put back that just makes sense with the project, such as
Good.
sidewalk.
Okay.
But we have no dates or anything.
No dates, we're working through the design. Ultimately, we need to get that construction cost, bring it back to the board to see whether you want to go forward with just a water and sewer project or whether we want to include the cost of storm sidewalks and the other roadway improvements associated with that.
Yeah, give us a cost.
Stay tuned.
Any other items for discussion on water management project? Okay, item 13, stormwater project status report.
Update on Jackson Lake, we're still waiting for springtime. Now that it's starting to warm up, you're going to see them starting to finalize the grading out there on the church's property, which will close this project out. And that's what we've been waiting on all winter long, essentially.
On what property?
Jackson.
Jackson Lake, it's
Jackson Lake.
No, I know.
The Methodist church that's right.
Oh,
behind
the
Jackson
Methodist
Lake.
church.
Yeah, we're using the Methodist church as a location for dewatering.
Okay.
And now that we've finished dredging actually back in November, December time period, but we've had to wait for it to dewater and wait for the time of year that's right to do all the mass grading
I
out
went
there
out
that's necessary.
there, this week, and it looks really good. The lake
The lake
looks
does.
good. I don't know what it looked like before, but it looks good now.
Yeah, they've removed a lot of material.
Yeah, there's a lot there.
Next, update on the Battle Avenue drainage improvements. The drainage study is completed. We did budget about $1 million to do some improvements out there. We're looking at bringing back 4 or 5 options to the board to see if there's any interest in moving forward with a project out in that area. Hopefully, we'll have that at our
I'm
next
very
CSC meeting.
interested.
So hopefully, we'll be presenting that next month. And that's,
Any other discussions on any items?
Thank you, Alderman Brand.
All righty.
Motion to adjourn?
Do I have a second on that?
I guess I will do that.
All right, motion to adjourn is passed. No.